You didn't mean to open it. You picked up your phone for something else, a message, a reminder, maybe nothing at all. And then 20 minutes disappeared. Maybe an hour, and the last thing you watched, you didn't even like it. You might have hated it. Someone you resent, living a life that irritates you. A video that made your blood pressure rise. A comment section that pulled you in like a drain. And yet your thumb kept moving. There's a name for what just happened to you. Not addiction, not weakness, not a failure of self-discipline. Those are the easy answers, the ones that let the real cause walk free. What just happened is older than your phone, older than the internet, older than television or radio or printing presses. What just happened has been happening to human beings since the first time one of us sat by a fire and stared into the dark just beyond the light, wondering what was out there, afraid of it, drawn to it. Carl Jung called it the shadow, and until you understand what the shadow actually is, not as a concept, not as a metaphor, but as something alive inside you right now, you will keep scrolling back to it, every night, without knowing why. Think about the last time you watched something that left you feeling worse than before you started. Not a horror film, not the news, though that qualifies. Something more personal. A person who has what you want. A body you compared yours to. A life that looked effortless and made yours feel small. Or maybe the opposite. Someone failing, someone exposed, someone humiliated. And you watched it longer than you should have, and felt something you don't want to name. That feeling, that specific, uncomfortable, slightly shameful feeling. That's the edge of the shadow. Jung spent decades mapping the human psyche, and what he found at the bottom of it was this. We are not one self. We are many. The self you show the world, composed, reasonable, moral, intentional. That's the persona, the mask. But underneath the persona lives everything you were told not to be. Every desire you were taught to suppress. Every fear you decided was too dark to look at directly. You didn't destroy those parts of yourself. You can't. You buried them. You pushed them down into the basement of your identity and locked the door and told yourself they weren't yours. But they're still there, and they are hungry. The shadow doesn't disappear when you refuse to look at it. It gets louder. It gets more creative. It finds other ways to be seen. Here is what the engineers who built these platforms understood, whether they admitted it to themselves or not. They understood that the most engaging content is not the content that makes you feel good. It's the content that activates what you've hidden from yourself. Outrage content works because somewhere inside you, you want permission to hate. Envy content works because somewhere inside you, you believe you deserve more than you have. And watching someone else have it confirms the wound. Vanity content works because somewhere inside you, you are terrified that you are not enough. And the scroll is a constant, compulsive audit of where you stand. None of this is weakness. None of this makes you broken. This is the architecture of the unconscious mind, meeting the architecture of behavioral engineering. And the result is a machine that knows your shadow better than you do. Because you've been hiding from your shadow your whole life. The algorithm has been studying it. There's a particular kind of content you keep returning to. You know the kind. You might be embarrassed to describe it out loud. It might not even be obviously dark. It might just be strangely specific. A specific type of person. A specific type of conflict. A specific aesthetic that pulls at something you can't articulate. You keep returning to it because it is showing you something about yourself that you haven't been willing to see any other way. The screen in your hand is not a window into the world. It is a mirror, and the reflection it shows you is not the one you've curated. It's not your profile picture or your best posts or the version of yourself you've spent years constructing. The reflection it shows you is the one you've been running from. This is the part where most people put down the mirror. This is the part where most people scroll to something else. But stay with this for a moment, because this is where it gets important. Ask yourself this question. What kind of content do you watch when no one is watching you? Not what you share, not what you like publicly, what you consume alone, at night, in the dark, when the social self has gone to sleep and something else has picked up the phone. That content is a map. It is not showing you who you are at your worst. It is showing you what you have not yet integrated, what you have not yet allowed yourself to understand about your own hunger, your own fear, your own grief, your own desire. Jung didn't believe the shadow was evil. He believed it was incomplete. He believed that the parts of yourself you've rejected don't become your enemies. They become your obsessions. They appear everywhere you try to look away from them, in the people you inexplicably despise, in the behavior that makes you furious in others, in the strangers on a screen whose lives you follow with an intensity you can't explain. The philosophical tradition has many names for this pattern. Plato described it as living in a cave, watching shadows on a wall, mistaking the projection for reality, never turning to face the fire that casts them. The prisoners in Plato's cave were not stupid. They were not broken. They were simply oriented toward the wrong direction. Their entire understanding of the world was built from shadows. Your feed is a cave wall. The content is the shadows. And the fire, the real light, is the part of you that is casting all of it. The Stoics understood something adjacent to this when they wrote about prohairesis, the faculty of choice, the inner citadel that cannot be touched by external chaos if you know how to inhabit it. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most psychologically sharp thinkers in history, said that the obstacle to your peace is never outside you. It is always the judgment you make about what is outside you. You are not addicted to your phone. You are addicted to avoiding a conversation with yourself. The phone is just the most convenient door you've found to walk through when that conversation gets too close. Buddhism approaches the same wound from a different angle. The concept of upadana, clinging, grasping, describes the way suffering is not caused by what we experience, but by our refusal to let it pass. We cling to pleasure because we fear its absence. We cling to distraction because we fear the stillness. We keep scrolling, not because the content is giving us something, but because stillness would take something from us, the comfortable fiction that we already know ourselves well enough. The screen keeps that fiction alive. Every notification is a small mercy from self-knowledge. So what do you do with this? Not a 5-step plan, not a digital detox, not a productivity hack or a screen time limit that you'll ignore by Friday. Those are all attempts to manage the shadow without meeting it, and the shadow does not respond to management. It responds to honesty. The first thing, the only first thing, is to stop calling your compulsive scrolling a failure. It is information. When you find yourself in that loop, pulled toward content you don't respect, that you don't want to want, do not shame yourself out of it, and do not surrender to it. Do something harder. Get curious. Ask, what is this showing me that I haven't been willing to look at directly? If you keep watching people who have the success you want, the shadow is trying to show you a desire you've been afraid to claim as yours. Maybe because claiming it means risking failure. Maybe because wanting it feels too vulnerable. Maybe because someone, somewhere, told you that you weren't the kind of person who gets to want that. If you keep watching people fail, be exposed, be humiliated. The shadow might be showing you a fear that lives in you, a terror of being seen as a fraud, of being found out, of the mask slipping. You watch others fall because some part of you is afraid you're next, and watching them instead of you feels like safety. If you keep watching lives that make yours feel small, the shadow is pointing at a grief you haven't allowed yourself to feel. A mourning for the version of your life you expected to be living by now. None of these are shameful. All of them are human. All of them are so deeply, universally human, that they have been written about in every language, in every century, by every philosopher who ever sat alone long enough to be honest. Jung's concept of shadow integration, and this is the part they never make into motivational posters, is not comfortable. It is not a process of discovering that your dark parts are secretly wonderful. It is the far more demanding work of sitting with the parts of yourself you find ugly or frightening or embarrassing, and saying, "You are also mine. I have been pretending you belong to someone else, but you are mine, and I would rather know you than be controlled by you." That is the shift, not elimination, not suppression, not another strategy to become a better performing version of your current avoidance. Recognition. You watch the shadow on the wall, and for the first time, you turn around and look at what is casting it. This is not easy. It will not happen in a single night, or a single video, or a single moment of clarity between one scroll and the next. But there is something that happens when you begin, something quiet and strange and genuinely altering. When you catch yourself in the loop, and instead of shame or surrender, you feel something like interest. Oh, this again. What are you trying to tell me? The algorithm loses power in that moment, not because you've blocked it or deleted the app or replaced it with something more virtuous. It loses power because it was never more powerful than your unconscious. And the moment your unconscious becomes even slightly more visible to you, the machine that was feeding off your blindness finds less to feed on. You become, gradually, more boring to the algorithm, and infinitely more interesting to yourself. That is not a small thing. That is the beginning of what the philosophers meant when they used a word we've softened into meaninglessness: awakening. They didn't mean feeling inspired. They didn't mean a good morning routine and a clear intention for the day. They meant the specific, disorienting, irreversible experience of seeing that what you took for reality was a projection, and turning, finally, to face the source. Plato's prisoner who escaped the cave did not walk back in and make peace with the shadows. He came back, yes, but changed. He could no longer mistake the projection for the thing itself. That is what seeing your shadow does. It doesn't solve your life. It doesn't quiet every hunger or resolve every wound. But it makes you harder to fool, especially by yourself. You are going to pick up your phone again tonight, maybe in an hour, maybe in 10 minutes, and something in the feed is going to reach for the part of you that you've been keeping in the dark. And for a moment, the pull will be exactly what it always is. But now you know what the pull is made of. And knowing changes things, not immediately, and not completely, but in the way that light changes a room. You don't have to do anything to the darkness. You just have to stop protecting it from the light. The cave is real. The shadows are real. The hunger that keeps you watching is real. But so is the fire. And so are you, the one who has been sitting with their back to it. If something in this reached you, not the information, but the recognition, then you already know why this channel exists. Not to explain philosophy to you, to use it to show you something about yourself that you might have been circling for years without finding the right angle. Subscribe if you want to keep turning around. And tell me in the comments, what kind of content pulls you back when you least want it to? You don't have to explain it. Just name it if you can, because naming it is the first light.